So today I have three big stories, and the third big story is this. It's the backup plan. So the backup plan is how we're going to help Ukraine do what they're going to do in the long term without US involvement so we can't be considered an aggressor. Okay, you're going to have to wait for that. First, let's talk about this. So over the last few days, we saw a lot about propaganda, and we saw it with the social media influencers in the United States. We also saw it here with Anastasia Trumfomova. She is a Russian. She's a longtime propagandist, according to this, what we see here. It appears that Anastasia doesn't just have four documentaries funded by RT. She put this film in at a recent film festival that was humanizing the Russians. She has at least 11 films that were documentaries funded by RT. Her entire career has been working with RT, and so that's somewhat problematic. Here it is in the Guardian Russian documentary, accused of falsely showing invading soldiers as victims. Okay, so a new documentary portraying the lives of Russian soldiers near the Ukrainian front lines has faced fierce criticism for attempting to whitewash Moscow's war crimes. Russians at War, directed by the Russian-Canadian filmmaker Anastasia Trofimova, chronicles 7 months spent embedded with a Russian army battalion in eastern Ukraine. In the film, which premiered at the Venice Film Festival last week, soldiers are portrayed grappling with the purpose of their fight. It's largely portrayed in a sympathetic light. Now, see, that's part of the problem here with the documentary. Trofimova said that the soldiers she lived with for 7 months were absolutely ordinary guys and claimed she saw no signs of war crimes. Well, just because she saw it doesn't mean that it didn't happen, and maybe she did see it and we just don't know. Unfortunately, thousands of Ukrainians have not been so lucky, and that's really the misery here, because she's giving this a fairly biased perception. Now, here's the actual trailer for the film. We're just going to look at little clips of this here. I'm going at my own risk, of course. That's her talking here, and she's going, yeah, sure, without permission from the Department of Defense, like that's likely to happen within Russia. Okay. Russia and Ukraine have always been inseparable. I miss the brotherly union. We got into a fight in Ukraine, but I don't feel like I'm right. But do you think that the order was right? I don't know. I came today so that my kids don't go tomorrow. Okay, so you're getting the feeling of it. They're trying to make the Russian soldiers who invaded Ukraine the sympathetic crowd, and it's really it's troubling. The Toronto Film Festival should consider that when a director, having already produced 11 films for Russian propaganda network RT, submits a film that whitewashes Russia's ongoing war crimes in Ukraine, the festival's acceptance and promotion of the film is complicity. And to some degree, that's a very fair statement. Okay, second big story here. So I'm old enough to remember when traditional Republicans wanted absolutely nothing to do with Russia. What happened? I'm asking the same question. I'm that traditional Republican. I'm a Reagan Republican, and I'm looking at what's going on now going, what are you guys doing? Like, the Russians were the bad guys. When did the Russians become the good guys? I don't understand it. So I don't know what happened either, but let's try to make some sense of this. The FBI identified around 600 people just in the United States. What's he talking about? He's replying to Meghan McCain. That's the daughter of John McCain, former senator, Republican Senator John McCain. I mean, how many people in media exactly are being paid by Russia? Maybe don't shill Kremlin propaganda and be an apologist for Putin, and we all won't suspect you're one of them too. Like, it's a good point. And so, yeah, more than 600 people. I've seen higher figures than this, more than 600 people just in the United States. So Russia has figured out, stop having Igor in St. Petersburg just be a troll. Not that they stopped doing that, but you have to go beyond doing that into actually promoting some people that are pushing your talking points. Now, are they pushing your talking points because it's just what they're saying and you're just amplifying it? Or is it worse, where they're doing kind of your bidding by, here's a selection of talking points? Are they just fully on the take? Something just doesn't smell right here, right? So don't know exactly where it is between those different scenarios. And I put this out in a poll, and most of the people in my audience think that they're like really in bed with the Russians, in the sense of they knew that they were doing Russia's bidding The second largest was saying like, you knew something wasn't right. And I feel like that's probably correct, that they knew something. Like, you're getting paid how much for these videos that you're putting out, or these tweets or whatever. You shouldn't be getting paid that much for it. So it does seem like something, like they knew something was wrong and looked the other way, or we just don't know, but it doesn't seem right. Okay, at any rate, here's Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley, as you know, was still cut in the mold of the traditional Republican who was saying, what Donald Trump's saying about Russia and Ukraine, that's not right. You have to defend Ukraine. You have to give them what they need. Now, I know she endorsed him, and I know people have heartburn about that. I get that. But she was still saying the entire time, we have to do something here and not let Putin do what he's doing to Ukraine. Okay, now, Lauren Chen, who's one of those social media influencers, was saying Nikki Haley should move to Ukraine and run for its presidency then. Spare us the last neocon talking points, because Nikki Haley actually was sticking up for Ukraine and was consistently doing so. Nikki Haley's reply just recently: at the time Lauren Chen wrote this anti-Ukraine post, she was being paid $10 million by the Russian government to promote pro-Russian propaganda. Well, it's not all like the 10 million was all going to her or anything, but you get the idea. She was being paid, whether she knew that it was coming from Russia or whether she should have known that it was coming from Russia. She was being paid by an organization. She's one of a number of these right-wing influencers who is being paid probably more than they knew they should be being paid for putting out what they were putting out. Okay, Nikki Haley also said this: a Chinese spy in the New York governor's office, a Russian campaign to pay off conservative media influencers, Iranians plotting to murder for hire on U.S. soil. Our enemies will stop at nothing to tear us apart by pitting us against each other. All Americans need to wake up. This is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to foreign influence in our country. And I think that's very fair. We need to root out, like, look, I'm a Republican. I don't want Republicans to win because of outside foreign influence, right? If you're a Democrat, you shouldn't want Democrats to win because of outside foreign influence. This should be a family dispute, the squabble between the Republicans and the Democrats. That's what it should be. It shouldn't, the scale shouldn't be tipped by anyone outside the country. Okay, I think that's enough with that. Here's Lindsey Graham, Republican senator from South Carolina. He met with Zelensky just a day ago, and here's what he had to say.
President Zelensky, I am such a admirer of what you and your country have done. You're trying to stop the Russians so we don't have to fight them. They don't want any American troops. They just need the weapons to free their country of a terrible invasion. They're sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals that could be good to our economy. So I want to keep helping our friends in Ukraine. We can win this. They need our help.
Yes, we need, and we have already. The biggest help is the support of American people and support of our friends. Thanks to Lindsey and his colleagues, to congressmen and senators from the United States. Thanks for this support, bipartisan support. Thank you so much.
Peace is coming.
Yes.
Okay, now what Zelensky said, and he's so right. Thanks for the support, for bipartisan support. Ukraine should not be a partisan issue. We should have a united foreign policy front to the degree that that's humanly possible. This shouldn't be, I'm in this camp and so I don't support Ukraine, or I'm in that camp so I do. It's very sad to see. Okay. Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's one of the big dividers within the Republican Party on this particular issue. He interviews, for example, Daryl Cooper, who may be, he says, the best and most honest popular historian in the United States. His latest project is the most forbidden of all, trying to understand World War II. So Tucker really loves the angle of, this is the guy that's really telling the truth, as opposed to the big corporate or big government or the swamp or the whatever it is. Okay, Liz Cheney's reply was actually, this is pro-Nazi propaganda, including, quote, Churchill was the chief villain of World War II, unquote, and Hitler, quote, didn't want to fight, unquote. No serious or honorable person would support or endorse this type of garbage. And so what's he talking about? This video just a few days ago where Tucker's interviewing this guy here, and I listened to about half of it where he was talking about this kind of thing. Cooper called Winston Churchill the chief villain of World War II. Well, why was he calling Churchill the chief villain? Because Churchill wanted the fight. Churchill wanted to fight with Hitler. See, Hitler took all of Europe, and then once Hitler took Europe, it was Churchill. Hitler was saying, we want to have peace. And no, Churchill wanted to keep fighting. Okay, because he didn't believe that he would actually be able to have peace, because Hitler just did what Hitler did, and he's going to keep coming. He's going to regroup, and then he's going to come for you. So better to have the fight now. But he wasn't saying that. And so this is the problem with this guy. And then Tucker was platforming him by giving him this ground to say it. But there's another problem that I have with Tucker here as well. Tucker's going to say this.
The big tech companies censor our content. I hate to tell you that it's still going on in 2024, but you know what they can't censor? Live events. And that's why we are hitting the road on a fall tour for the entire month of September.
Okay, well, that and you're going to make a fortune in the fall tour, but okay.
Phoenix with Russell Brand, Anaheim, California.
Okay, look at the cast of characters here. Russell Brand, Vivek.
Swami, Colorado Springs with Tulsa.
Okay, loves conspiracy theories. I'm with Tucker all the time.
Salt Lake City with Glenn.
Okay, Glenn Beck is like a reformed, maybe not so reformed, but reforming conspiracy theorist. He was a lot worse 10 years ago, but he still does this stuff sometimes.
Tulsa, Oklahoma with Dan Bongino. Kansas City with Megyn Kelly.
Megan's the first one here that's like kind of straight shooter.
Wichita with Charlie Kirk.
Okay, Charlie Kirk is about as MAGA as they make him.
Milwaukee with Larry Elder.
Larry Elder's the older school conservative who is still promoting Trump, Trump, Trump.
Rosenberg, Texas with Jesse Kelly. Grand Rapids with Kid Rock. Hershey, Pennsylvania with J.D. Vance. Reading, Pennsylvania with Alex Jones.
This is the problem that I have. The Republicans, and I'm a Republican, the Republicans can't seem to distinguish anymore between Republicans who support traditional conservative values and MAGA, or even worse, like in the case here with Alex Jones, conspiracy theorists. And that's really problematic. Okay, so at any rate, let's go on to a third big story and final big story. General Ben Hodges was saying this.
There's nothing in Russian history that should make people think that, okay, if we just let them have Crimea, or if we just let them have this part, they'll be happy and then we can all get along.
Okay, that's just like what happened with Churchill. So what we should be doing is allowing Ukraine to go after Russia full force. But since we're not doing that, we have kind of a backup plan. And I think this is the backup plan. US and Ukraine collaborate on developing alternatives to Soviet-era air defense systems. So here's the article in the Euromaidan Press. A significant move to bolster Ukraine's air defense capabilities. The United States is working with Ukraine to design and build substitutes for Soviet-era air defense systems. This collaboration was announced by U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin at the 24th meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group at the Ramstein format, 6 September 2024. While Ukraine has successfully launched massive production of drones, various types of munitions, and vehicles for ground forces, air defense production was nearly absent. While Secretary Austin did not provide specific details, experts believe that focus on developing an analog to the Soviet-era anti-aircraft missile that could be used with Ukraine's existing systems, like the S-300s. That's what we're talking about. So they're going to create or help Ukraine grow its own. They're not going to give them what they need to go and target Russia, but they're going to help them grow their own so that they can target Russia with their own, because they're just not going to do that. They just are self-deterring and are not willing to do that because Putin is deterring them, and then they're going an extra step in self-deterring. But they're going to help them grow their own. Long term, this is a good strategy. Short term, lots of Ukrainians are going to die because of that policy stance. Final story, Ukrainian Defender shares a story how a Russian granny surrendered 20 Russian soldiers to Ukrainian captivity. One granny turned in 20 Russian soldiers. Really? How did she do it? Well, she just came up to our guys and said, there are 20 boys that want to surrender, but they have weapons. They're over in that house. Okay. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.